Welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to help trauma therapists be their incredible selves, to be human, to be real, not just a clinician. I'm a big believer in who we are is more important than what we know. And this requires cultivating authenticity, genuineness, and vulnerability, and that requires intention. You can learn more about my courses and workshops by going to thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. Let's get started. Here we go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back. Super excited to have back Doreen Hills. Doreen, welcome.
Hello, everyone.
So Doreen is the founder, director at the Center for Healing Trauma and Attachment. Their mission is to provide cutting-edge treatment approaches in healing traumatic distress, and they're committed to finding ways to provide quality and affordable therapy and to be the pioneer in healing trauma in the Northeast region. Doreen has been a mental health provider for over 20 years and has worked in various mental health settings in New York, Philippines, and Colorado. Her background includes intense and immersed experiences working with poverty-stricken fishermen in the Philippines, orphans that were severely neglected and abandoned, as well as Muslims in Manila. These experiences given her immense insight to trauma, resiliency, and healing. Doreen, welcome back. Excited to talk to you today about our topic. But first, for those listeners maybe who haven't checked out the previous episodes, give us a little bit where you're from originally and where you are currently.
Yes. So, hello everyone, and happy Friday to the listeners. So, I came from the Philippines, and we all know that Philippines is, sadly, a beautiful area, beautiful country. Yet, we are considered a third world country. And I came from the Philippines, and I was able to provide a lot of volunteer experience there with regard to working with poverty. And then I also, I moved to New York. And then now I developed the Center for Healing Trauma and Attachment here in Colorado. I've been a provider for over 20 years. So I love what I'm doing. And as long as I'm breathing, I will continue to do this, to serve those who are in need.
One of the things that I have really grown to appreciate about you is your persistence, your resilience, your vulnerability. You speak from the heart. You in our previous episodes we've done, you shared a lot about how you learned and your openness to learning and your openness to helping not just clients but other therapists as well. It's really inspiring to me. I mean, that's what this podcast is all about. So I don't know. I just wanted to say that before we get going here.
There's. It's when you're saying that, it reminds me of, let's say, holidays, right? And then there's that receiving and giving. I think there is a powerful healing component when we give. And the thing about this is why hold on to something that you have when you can give it and spread this to the people that you serve? And also, clinicians that can benefit and contribute, benefit from what I have. And so pass on the legacy. And I think you see this so much with trauma experts. They share what they know, because eventually at one point we'll be gone. Eventually at one point we'll no longer be, practicing anymore. And you've got to share that legacy. You've got to share the gifts that you've gotten. And, it's kind of like a library. You don't want a dusted library. You wanted that library, if let's say there's a Doreen library, I want that being used. Right. I want some of them actually given to providers. So.
Yeah. Well said. So, all right, today we're talking about an informed trauma intake.
Yes.
Okay. What does this mean? What does it mean to you?
I will go back to that 4 pillars of trauma-informed care, which are the 4 Rs: realizing that everybody can be impacted by trauma, including us; responding to those triggers and warnings, including for us; responding appropriately, in a safe and secure environment. And the fourth one is resisting re-traumatization. Now, how are we going to weave that in a trauma-informed intake? I wanted to point out this thing to everyone, that it's not the first session that makes a difference. It's not the first session that will let your clients or come back to you. It is actually, for me, now I'm just speaking for me, it is the first 3 to 5 minutes. The first 3 to 5 minutes is the most critical and impactful time that you can share with the client. Why is that? I will go back to what I've learned from Bonnie Badenoch in her book. I wish I remember. It's kind of like I think it has, the title is about the heart of trauma. She said something about when our clients, this is what I got from it. When our clients reach out to us, it's kind of like they are willing to bid for trust. It's a bidding moment to them. Like, okay, I'm bidding for trusting someone again. And so when they open the door to therapy, when they come in and enter your place, that is the most critical moment, really. When you come and greet them in the waiting area, the way you perceive yourself to them, the way they see you, the way they feel you, can really make a significant impact if they will continue with you the next session. So it is actually the first 3 to 5 minutes when you visit with them. And we're not talking about paperwork here. We're just visiting, like that greeting moment with them. So I don't know if you've heard about this, but this is what, I've witnessed this when I'm working with people.
Well, I mean, I've heard previously people say, the relationship starts with the phone call, with that first touch point. Mm-hmm. So given that, people are probably wondering, okay, so what does that mean? Hi, obviously not, but so how do you engage? How do you interact? Are you, when you're going out to meet someone, you're doing this quick scan to see what their temperament is, where they're at? Obviously you want to kind of meet them where they're at, right? To a certain degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now again, this is just based on my experience. It actually starts before you meet your client. How prepared are you? Did you get enough sleep, the night before? Were you listening to really horrific, sad stories in the news? Or, did you get some sleep, right? Sleep, good, good breakfast and all that, because all those can impact the way you present yourself to them. Have you done your breathing? Did you use the bathroom before you meet them? So for me, the preparation phase to where, before you see the client, can really help you be a regulated individual, be a regulated provider. Because we all know that we can be the co-regulators of our clients. We are we provide the attunement. And so it may sound so simple, right? But it's very powerful, because oftentimes we run into burnout or secondary trauma when we don't take care of ourselves. Right. We schedule people, like, let's say you see Johnny from 9 to 10, and then you see Mary 10 to 11, and you see Edward 11 to noon. Do we have time to take care of ourselves? have you read the intake paper? Do you know what you're looking forward to? Do you know do you know where they're coming from? So I think that is part of a trauma-informed care, to be able to respond to my triggers, to be able to respond to attune to my self-care and resisting the trauma. Because I think it is really important for us to prepare ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And one way of doing that is, taking care of ourselves first.
So let's move on from there. What do you do after that person comes into your office, in terms of, we're talking about a trauma-informed intake?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know people out there, clinicians out there listening to this, who, haven't been doing this for 20 years, and they want to hear what exactly do you, and obviously it's different each time, but
of course,
give us an example.
Yeah. So I prepare my office. I'm not going to be scrambling and just trying to rush everything. I would actually, a day before, or 15 to 30 minutes before I see someone, I prepare the office. I make sure there's Kleenex. I make sure the little waste basket is not full. I make sure the room is well lighted. And in fact, on my intake form, are they kind of sensitive on the scent? I need to know that. Because again, people are different. We look at the trauma center, it's individualized care. And so when I sit with them, again, paying attention to where they're at, the more hyper you are, or maybe you're so welcoming or you're so friendly, that might be, you might have a pushback there. Right. Or you might be too slow, like that slow-mo. That might be, so you've got to pay attention to where the energy of your client is. And then when I visit with them, I got to tell you this, and I tell this to my interns: know your intake history, know your intake forms. If you can memorize what's in there and you get comfortable, knowing the sections of your questions, and you don't have to have the paper in front of you. So in my book, the way I do intake, I don't have the paperwork with me. I have the person right in front of me, and I give them 100% of my eye contact, my energy, and my discussion, my inquiry towards them. So I don't have the laptop. Mm-hmm. I don't have the laptop. I think that is a barrier. And I don't have a paper. And and that's how I do intake. Sometimes from time to time, I will have a notepad and I will tell clients, so I'll give you a fictitious name. So let's say, I might tell Johnny, what, is it okay? This is very important for me to remember. Mm-hmm. So I will have, can I write this down? And they said, absolutely. But I don't have the whole intake, form. I memorize it. And I've been doing this for quite some time, so I'm familiar with it. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes in our clinical setting, we focus a lot on presenting symptoms, right? Presenting concerns, the symptoms, why they're coming to see us. I incorporate the element of resiliency there. I ask them, what are your hopes? What are your goals? How do you learn better? Are you more of a tactile person? Are you a visual person? Are you an auditory person? So show me, tell me how you learn better, or how you can absorb information, because this is, for me as a clinician, this is important for me to know where you're at. Mm-hmm. So I ask them hopes, goals, dreams, how did you get where you're at now? Because I'm wanting to understand, their bridge. They're dealing with something difficult, but they're here in front of you, sitting in front of you there. They're telling you how the triumph of being in this session with you. Well, I got here because I I was able, I took my kids to the babysitter. And so you can see that there's some form of organization. They can schedule their time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I bring that in those intake because we wanted to know their strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks use the miracle questioning, the miracle questioning, the miracle interview. And so I don't only focus on the presenting symptoms and problems. I focus on the other side of, the other story. And that gives me an idea of, okay, so this person is a visual person. This person is a tactile. Then we can incorporate the appropriate activities, the appropriate homeworks, if they wish, if they like homework,
mm-hmm.
in part of their treatment plan.
What are some of the ways that you're able to discover whether someone's been traumatized or not?
I pay attention a lot on the body posture, the energy that they bring. It's those subjective, what you notice, what you observe about them. But I also incorporate really sound screenings, and I can share a few that I use. Bessel van der Kolk created this screening. It's a traumatic stress screening. It's a traumatic stress screening. You can look it up. You can Google it, and it will actually show you what he's got. And there's also this thing called the DSM-5 TR screener, which is a very good screener that is available free and online. And I also use the PCL, which is the post-traumatic checklist. And it's just, these are just some of the few forms I use. But again, it depends on, you use them based on the appropriateness of that to your clients. So I use those screeners. I also definitely pay attention to the, to the body language, what they say, their theme, the themes of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that really gives me a good, solid, information about, what this person is struggling and what this person is, what the person's strength is. Another thing that I use is the SANE tray, which maybe we can, talk a little bit about that in, future podcasts. But I tell them, create your current world. And that gives you so much information of what is happening, because you're working with symbols there. You're working with their limbic system. So I use the art, approaches to understanding, the people that I work with.
In terms of, when you're sitting down with a client for the first time, in addition to the intake form and the screenings, and do you give all those particular screenings in that first session? No. Okay.
It's a good question.
In terms of talking to someone, what is some of the language you might use that would help you maybe determine if someone has experienced trauma?
Mm-hmm. So I ask them again. I give them that informed consent, share that about me. We start with that. And I just ask them, tell me about your, growing up. How was that like for you? So I start with very general. And then we get into the detail, like tell me who provided you safety, security, love, and care, who supported you in times of needs, who seemed to be, standoffish, or you felt like a little, scared. So I kind of poke and prod a little bit, not like going going full scale, full blown, because you don't want them to be leaving the session running and dysregulated. So I asked that, and people will talk to you, people will tell you. And I also asked them about, have you had, your experience? Some of them already have experience with their therapists, and how was that like for them? And some of them experience EMDR. There are cases where they did not find that helpful. In fact, it harmed them. And it's not the approach, but it's how, the timing and pacing. And so you get to understand it. So with regard to complex trauma, I asked them about the family of origin. What was that like for them? Who took care of them? So I follow Bessel van der Kolk's guideline in terms of, understanding the family system.
This is awesome. I just want to remind everyone we're speaking with Doreen here, and we're talking about trauma-informed intake. Doreen Hills is the founder of the Center for Healing, Trauma, and Attachment, and we'll be back in 2 seconds. Hang on. What I love about what you're saying is you haven't even mentioned to the client this trauma. You haven't even mentioned abuse.
No.
You've invited them, excuse me, to share what their childhood's been like, who's provided safety, who's provided comfort. And all those questions are invitations to open up, right? Because a lot of times if you ask someone, have they experienced trauma? Have they been traumatized? They're like, no, haven't been raped, haven't been to war, haven't been into a car accident. I'm good. But when you start asking those questions that you said, who's provided safety, who's provided comfort, that's a whole different way in and opens up a world.
It is, because they will tell you when they're ready, even if they come here and they say, I'm ready for therapy, it doesn't mean that they're going to divulge the whole thing. You've got to take it easy. And I think this is, and I've learned over, many years, you cannot force it. Take your time, slow it down. And again, I always ask, okay, so I'm noticing right now in the very, part of first, I'm noticing that you're kind of, you're short of breath. Can we take a moment? Can we take a pause right now? So at the very first session, they're already learning window of tolerance and regulation. So I incorporate that at the very beginning of treatment. So let's take a moment, let's ground ourselves. And when you do that, the likelihood of them leaving your session dysregulated is very slim to none. Because you're already giving them tools, not just asking them questions. Because again, trauma-informed care is a relationship. I am getting something from you, but I'm also giving something to you. I'm already providing you tools that you can actually start implementing, before you leave the office.
One of the things that I'm hearing from you and sensing from you is this trust, this embrace of trust you're giving and providing to your client. I can feel it, and you're allowing them. You're clearly not coming into this with, I'm the expert and I have all this knowledge and this is what we're doing. You're providing a context for the person to express themselves, to share what's going on with them in a very comforting way. It's a whole different way of doing it.
They are the experts, whether we like it or not. And they're the ones who's going to tell us, they're the ones who's going to tell us when and when not to get there in a very, it can be subjective. It can be something, outspoken. And I tell people they are the captain of the ship. They're just allowing us to get in there, to be with them. And I think it is, again, when we're working with complex trauma, trust is so important because that is the number one thing that was ruptured in their relationship. So again, I'm going back to that first critical moment of, the first 3 to 5 minutes. So we start there to develop that trust at the beginning, before you even start the intake.
As you've been doing this, what are some of the things or experiences that have, and I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure there are many, but can you pull out maybe one or two things that have maybe surprised you in your experience of working in this field of trauma with people?
I would go to this place where the first session for clients is the most critical. I mean, I'm trying to process this and say it, so I can articulate it well. That moment of bidding. I remember I had this kind, that was a while back. And the first session meant so much to them that we felt that we already, it's not intake anymore. The very first session, you already dove into the trauma. And you were not even, I did not even expect that. They just let you, and the first session is already like, it feels like you're already doing sessions with them many, many months. And so my point is setting a trusting framework can make so much difference, because client is, like, I'm ready now. And sometimes you have to like, whoa, I remember having a client, like, I'm ready to go in there. Why did it get there? Because you already developed that trusting relationship with them. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what, and I have not, and knock on wood, right? People love to, at the end of the first session, they will say, I will come back.
I won't or will?
I will come back.
I will come back. Yeah.
Yes. And so, they look forward to that already. That it's not, this person is not going to ask me really serious or super scary questions. This person is actually willing to understand my story.
And able to. Yeah.
But again, we have to be, as clinicians, we have to prepare ourselves. That's, that's my formula. I've got to prepare myself before I see an individual, before I see a client. And that is to take care of myself too.
Did you ever experience a situation where you realized you hadn't done enough to take care of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Well, it was, it was gut-wrenching. And I know I was not myself. I actually remember I had this really cool mentor and I wanted to be like him. And so I wanted to be kind of like a la this person. And I wanted to be him. My style was not me anymore. And I felt that. And I said, I cannot pretend that I'm this person. I got to be me. Because oftentimes we kind of run into this, like, I wanted to be like this person. And we pretend that we can't do that. I mean, for me, I felt fake. I felt awful. So so that's, that was my experience. So I have to go back to who am I? Doreen, who are you? What are your, what are your roots? And I have to remind myself that this is my style. And all the techniques that I'm learning is actually just a gift that, people are sharing with us. But it still goes back to who I am as a provider.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I think that's really good, sound advice for the other therapists who are listening, because it's easy to not trust ourselves,
Yes.
to feel that we're not good enough. We're not as knowledgeable as this other therapist who's written all these books, or this other therapist who's on all these whatever summits and conferences or whatever. But what you're saying, I think, really goes to the heart of it is, and really your general message is one of, this is my interpretation, you value so much the importance of the therapist taking care of themselves, trusting themselves, honoring who they are. And the therapeutic relationship is contingent upon that.
Yes, exactly. We all share mirror neurons, right? When we take care of ourselves, we can emulate that. We can share that with our clients. Our clients know. Our clients know when, okay, this person is real, or this person is just, is just, I just don't feel. They can sense that. And in fact, sometimes they overly sense that because they've been through, a lot of times they've been through hell.
Mm-hmm.
So they're more hypervigilant, they're more hypersensitive. So it goes back to us. Our purpose is to be the co-regulator to our people. And we can start doing that from the first time we see them. That is the intake process.
All right, Doreen. Wow. Another inspiring session from you. My God. Share with our listeners how they can reach you, how they can contact you.
Yes. So you can reach us at www.chtainc.org, which Guy has if you wanted to reach to him. And our phone number is 970-397-4609.
Okay. And we'll have that linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Once again, that's Center for Healing Trauma and Attachment. That's CHTAINC.org. And you have a bunch of resources on your website, links to programs, your workshops you're putting on, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
They can reach out to us by phone too.
Okay. Doreen, awesome. Thanks so much. We'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.